Have you ever felt like you're in the middle of a constant storm? A storm not of rain and wind, but of worries, anxieties, frustrations, and the incessant noise of the modern world. We seek refuge in so many places. In a weekend getaway, in the purchase of something new, in the approval of someone we admire. These refuges might give us a moment of relief, a truce. But the storm invariably returns. What if I told you there is a shelter we can build within ourselves? A shelter that doesn't depend on the weather outside, that remains firm and secure, no matter how strong the gale. The ancient Stoic philosophers, masters in the art of living, called this shelter inner peace or ataraxia, a tranquility of the soul. And they left us a clear map of how to build it. The main material, the only truly unshakable foundation, is not money, fame, or health. It is virtue. The idea that virtue is the path to peace might sound a bit old, perhaps even too abstract for our times. But I invite you to stay with me on this journey, because we are going to demystify this word and discover how the daily practice of virtue is the most powerful and concrete tool we have to navigate the complexity of life and find a peace that is not fragile, but resilient and lasting. If you are looking for a calmer mind, more strength to face challenges, and a wisdom that applies to every moment of your day, this content is for you. So, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because today we are going to build the pillars of your inner fortress together. What does inner peace really mean? Before we talk about the path, we need to understand the destination. What is this so-called inner peace? We often confuse peace with the absence of problems. We think we'll only have peace when all the bills are paid, when all our relationships are perfect, when our health is impeccable, and our job is a constant source of joy. But let's be honest, when in human life do all these conditions align perfectly and forever? Almost never. Depending on external factors for peace is like trying to build a sandcastle at the edge of the sea. With every tide, every unexpected wave, everything collapses. The Stoic peace, ataraxia, is different. It's not the absence of problems, but the presence of inner strength to deal with them. It's a state of serenity that is not disturbed by external chaos. Imagine a deep lake on a mountain. On the surface, the wind can stir the waters, the rain can fall, but in the depths, everything remains calm and stable. This is the peace we seek. It is the ability to observe life's events, the good, the bad, the indifferent, with clarity and equanimity, without being hijacked by our reactive emotions. I remember a particularly chaotic period of my life. Everything seemed to be going wrong at the same time. Problems at work, a family health issue, financial uncertainties. My initial reaction was panic, despair. I felt like a small boat being tossed from side to side in a raging sea. Peace seemed like an unattainable luxury. It was during this period that I began to delve deeper into the Stoic teachings. And the first lesson I learned was this: I couldn't control the storm, but I could learn to be a better captain of my boat. Peace was not in calming the sea but in strengthening my own mind. And the map to this fortress, as I discovered, was the practice of virtue. Demystifying virtue, the only true good. The word virtue can carry some weight. It might sound moralistic or old-fashioned. But for the Stoics, virtue, or arete in Greek, has a very practical meaning: excellence of character. It is the best version of ourselves in action. It's not about being perfect, but about striving to act with wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation in all situations. The central point of Stoic philosophy, the idea that changes everything, is this: virtue is the only true good. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, pain, illness, poverty, is classified as indifferent. This doesn't mean we don't care about these things. We prefer to be healthy rather than sick. We prefer to have money rather than be in need. But our fundamental well-being, our peace of mind, cannot depend on them. Why? Because all these things are, for the most part, outside of our total control. Your health can fail, you can lose money, people can think poorly of you for no reason. If your happiness is anchored to these things, you will live in a constant state of anxiety. Virtue, on the other hand, is entirely under our control. No one can force you to be unjust. No one can stop you from being courageous in your thoughts. No one can take away your ability to act with moderation and wisdom. Your choices, your judgments, your actions, this is your domain. And when you focus on improving this area, on acting with virtue, you find a source of self-esteem and peace that is unshakable. You stop worrying about what you cannot control and start focusing on being the best person you can be, right here, right now. To make this more concrete, the Stoics divided virtue into 4 interconnected pillars. Let's explore each of them as a direct path to peace. 1. The path of wisdom, Sophia/Prudentia, seeing the world with clarity. The first virtue, and perhaps the foundation of all others, is wisdom. But we are not talking about wisdom in the sense of having a high IQ or accumulating facts. Stoic wisdom is the art of making correct judgments. It's the ability to see the world as it is, not as our emotions, fears, and desires paint it. The main instrument of Stoic wisdom is what they call the dichotomy of control. This idea, popularized by Epictetus, is simple but profound. In any situation, there are things we can control and things we cannot. What can we control? Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions. In short, our inner world. What can we control? Pretty much everything else. The actions of other people, the weather, the economy, our reputation, the final outcome of our efforts, and even our own bodies, which age and get sick. Peace is found when we stop wasting our energy trying to control the uncontrollable and focus exclusively on what is in our power. Think about it. How much anguish comes from worrying about what others think of us? How much frustration comes from trying to change someone who doesn't want to change? How much anxiety arises from fixating on a future outcome we cannot guarantee? I used to get extremely anxious before important presentations. I would spend sleepless nights imagining everything that could go wrong. The projector failing, the audience not liking it, me forgetting a part of the speech. My focus was entirely on the uncontrollable. Stoic wisdom taught me to shift my focus. I couldn't control the audience's reaction, but I could control the quality of my preparation. I couldn't control the technology, but I could have a plan B. I couldn't guarantee I wouldn't be nervous, but I could practice breathing techniques to calm myself. By focusing on what I could control, my preparation and my attitude, the anxiety drastically decreased. Peace came not from the guarantee of a perfect outcome, but from the confidence that I was doing my best with what was within my reach. This is wisdom in action. How to practice wisdom in daily life. Start by constantly asking yourself, is this thing that's worrying me right now under my control or not? If it's not, practice acceptance. Tell yourself, this is outside my domain. I will let it go. If it is under your control, ask, what is the virtuous action I can take here and now? Wisdom is this discernment. It is the clarity that precedes peace. 2. The path of justice, dikaiosin, living in harmony with others. The second virtue is justice. When we think of justice, we usually imagine courts and laws. But Stoic justice is much broader and more personal. It's about treating others with fairness, kindness, respect, and integrity. It's about recognizing that we are all part of the same human community, what they called the cosmopolis. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, constantly wrote in his Meditations about our duty to others. He said, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." This means our well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of others. Acting with injustice, selfishness, malice, or greed may bring a short-term material gain, but it always creates an inner conflict. It corrodes our soul and destroys our peace. Think of a time you acted with envy or held a grudge. How did you feel? Probably there was an inner turmoil, a discomfort. Now think of a time you helped someone without expecting anything in return, or treated a difficult person with patience and empathy. Even if it was hard, I bet you felt a sense of integrity, of inner peace afterward. Justice for the Stoic is an act of alignment. When we act justly, we align our actions with our fundamental nature as social and rational beings. This harmony between our actions and our nature is a deep source of tranquility. The peace that comes from a clear conscience is one of the most solid there is. I remember a situation at work where a colleague made a mistake, but the blame was about to fall on someone else. I had the option to stay quiet and avoid trouble, or to speak the truth and clarify the situation, even if it created an uncomfortable moment. I chose to speak. In the short term, it created some tension. But the peace I felt afterward, the certainty of having done the right thing, was immeasurable. If I had remained silent, that little sting of guilt and dishonesty would have haunted me, silently stealing my peace. How to practice justice in daily life. Start small. Be honest in your interactions. Treat the supermarket cashier with the same respect you treat your boss. Do not participate in gossip. Keep your promises. When you feel the temptation to act selfishly, stop and think of the hive. Remember that every act of kindness and fairness is not just a gift to the other person, but a step toward your own inner peace. 3. The path of courage, Andrea, facing life without fear. The third virtue is courage. And just like justice, Stoic courage goes far beyond its common definition. It's not just about physical bravery in a battle. It is, above all, about moral courage. It's the strength to face fear, pain, difficulty, and uncertainty with firmness and resilience. Life is full of situations that scare us. We are afraid of failing, of being rejected, of getting sick, of losing those we love. Fear is a powerful emotion that can paralyze and rob us of our peace. Courage is not the absence of fear. A courageous person also feels fear. The difference is that they do not allow fear to dictate their actions. They act despite the fear because they know it's the right thing to do. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." How many times have we spent days or weeks anxious about an event, a difficult conversation, a medical exam, an important decision, and when the event finally happens, we realize that the suffering we created in our minds was far worse than the reality. Courage is the virtue that helps us break this cycle. I had a terrible fear of public speaking for years. My heart would race, my hands would sweat, my mind would go blank. Every opportunity to speak was a source of anguish. I could have avoided these situations forever and thus avoided the discomfort. But that would be living a smaller life, a life governed by fear. The Stoic approach taught me to see each opportunity not as a threat, but as a training ground for courage. I started accepting small invitations to speak. I felt fear every time. But I focused on doing my best, on serving the audience, on being authentic. And each time I faced the fear and survived, the courage grew and the fear diminished. Peace came not when the fear completely disappeared, but when I realized I was stronger than it. Peace is the byproduct of the courage to live fully without shrinking from challenges. How to practice courage in daily life. Identify a small fear that limits you. It could be the fear of expressing an opinion, of trying a new hobby, of having an honest conversation. Take one small step to face that fear. Practice what the Stoics call premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Imagine the worst-case scenario. And then what? Would you survive? What would you do? By visualizing and preparing for the worst, you rob fear of its power. You realize you have the inner resources to handle whatever happens. This is training the courage muscle, which in turn protects your peace. For the path of temperance, Sophrosyne, mastering yourself. The fourth and final virtue is temperance, or moderation. This is perhaps the most relevant virtue for our world of excess. We are constantly bombarded with temptations. Food, drink, shopping, infinite entertainment, notifications, validation on social media. Temperance is the virtue of self-discipline, self-control, and mastery over our own appetites and desires. To act without temperance is to become a slave. A slave to food, to drink, to the need for approval, to anger, to desire. And a slave can never be at peace, because their happiness always depends on an external factor, on one more fix. When we give in to all our impulses, we live on an emotional roller coaster. The euphoria of pleasure is quickly followed by emptiness or guilt, which leads us to seek more pleasure, in a vicious and exhausting cycle. Temperance is not about deprivation or living a boring, joyless life. It is about freedom. It is about being the master of yourself, not the servant of your desires. It's about consciously choosing what is best for you in the long run, instead of being carried away by instant gratification. It's about finding joy in simple things and not depending on ever-increasing stimuli to feel good. Think about smartphone use. How many times do we pick up the phone without even knowing why? Just out of an impulse to check something, to scroll the feed. And before we know it, an hour has passed. We feel a slight sense of emptiness, of wasted time. This is a lack of temperance. Practicing temperance in this case would be, for example, setting specific times to use social media, disabling unnecessary notifications, or leaving the phone in another room when you're focused on a task or talking to someone. The peace that temperance brings is a peace of clarity and stability. When you are not thrown from side to side by your desires, your mind calms down. You become more present, more focused. You stop looking for happiness outside and start cultivating it within. How to practice temperance in daily life. Choose one area of your life where you feel you lack self-control. It could be in your diet, your finances, the time you spend online. Set a small, realistic challenge for yourself. For example, this week I will not buy any coffee out, or today I will wait 20 minutes before reacting angrily to a provocation. Every small victory in self-mastery strengthens your will and brings you closer to a stable, self-generated peace. The journey is the destination, integrating the virtues. These four virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, are not separate boxes. They work together like the four tires of a car. To have a difficult conversation, courage, you need to know what to say and when to say it. Wisdom, you need to treat the other person with respect. Justice, and you need to control your emotions during the conversation. Temperance. The pursuit of virtue is not a quest for perfection. There will be days when we fail. We will be impatient, act out of fear, be unjust, or give in to an impulse. And that's okay. The Stoics were not superhumans. They were people practicing every day. The important thing is not to never fall but to always get up and try again. Peace comes not from being perfectly virtuous, but from the conscious, daily effort to try to be. The journey of virtue is the path to peace itself. Every choice you make, no matter how small, is an opportunity to practice. The choice not to complain about traffic. The choice to listen to a friend with full attention. The choice to do the hard work first. The choice to take a deep breath before responding with irritation. Each of these small choices is a brick you lay in the construction of your inner fortress. So, the next time you feel like you're in the middle of the storm, remember your inner shelter. Remember that you have a map and the tools to strengthen it. The map is the 4 virtues. The tools are your daily choices. Peace is not something you find, it's something you build. And you can start building right now with the very next decision you make. Virtue is not a distant destination. It is the quality of your journey, step by step, every single day. And it is in this journey that true and lasting peace resides. So, what are you going to do with this new perspective? Which of the 4 virtues do you feel you need to develop most in your life right now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's learn and grow together on this journey. Wisdom is strengthened when it is shared. Until next time.